Sonic Retold Issue 2. It starts out in Albion, even though I thought the last issue was supposed to resolve all that. So this is just a pointless epilogue apparently, instead of immediately moving on to the next thing. So Win and Lara reunite and hug. Well, that's good. I didn't see that in Archie Sonic Online. But the second page seems to be a complete waste of time where they talk about recap and nothing happens. Surprisingly, Remington gets mad and says Knuckles doesn't belong in Haven, because it's a tomb for a forgotten guild and the Brotherhood is lost. He has the right to be mad that Knuckles abandoned his own people, as a member of that people, but somehow he's completely forgetting that he has to guard the Master Emerald. If he said that he could just get a giant robot to do it, then he'd be right. At least Sonic admits that Knuckles can be kind of a jerk, but still wants to help them anyways. But he wouldn't be complaining about Knuckles being in Haven in Archie Sonic, because he's supposed to be in Albion right now. Sonic tells Tails to contact Nicole and find out what frequency was used, since Julie once contacted them with her built-in antenna, and should be with Knuckles. Remington says that his local engineers will start work on repairing Tails' plane. Another entire page is wasted, boring us with nothing happening. Why is he telling Sonic all this stuff that Sonic already knows? Remington says that with Sonic's help, the struggling echidnas can conquer the Dark Legion, somehow, and unite the echidna race. Sonic says that conquer isn't one of his favorite buzzwords, as I'm starting to get worried that Remington is going to get a sudden Ron the Death Eater status, fanfiction writer style, after Julie and Saffron were snubbed their time in the limelight for being Pender's characters. It's understandable what Remington wants to do though. He's supposed to be a good guy, but it makes sense that the bad situation of his people would make him desperate and bitter. But look at Chuck. The people of Mobotropolis were put in a desperate situation at the start of the comic, and he didn't turn bitter and go to extremes. Sonic asks what Remington will do with the resulting prisoners, as I'm wondering why Remington thinks a softie like Sonic would happily help out with his vengeful plan. I guess he has seen nothing but a cocky guy who beats people up in Sonic so far. Of course he wouldn't know Sonic as well as his friends do. We see the Dark Legionnaires surrounded by people as Remington says that they need a new home as beautiful as Echidnopolis, and thanks to Sonic, they now have a huge supply of workers to rebuild Albion, and a few months of hard labor should take the fight out of them. That's harsh but pragmatic. Way smarter than simply executing the Dark Legionnaires when they need all the workforce they can get. Provided that they won't be able to escape their situation and plan against them again. Hopefully all the work the Dark Legionnaires will do to help them will be worth keeping them around. It's worth rebuilding as fast as possible. The Legionnaires get to make up for what they did, even if it means they have to be forced into it. Hey, wait a minute. When Eggman finds out which ones were left behind in Albion, won't he just press a button to blow them all up? These guys are ticking time bombs. Sure, Eggman thinks the failure on Albion doesn't matter because he'll do the Genesis wave, but that's gonna fail, and then he will care about it. Sonic tells him to make sure it's not too hard or he might be fighting them again soon. Doesn't mention the fact that there's bombs in the Legionnaires, and he wisely plans on sending Knuckles here to come and supervise. Okay, but who's gonna be guarding the Master Emerald? Vector? I'm glad this conversation didn't lead to Sonic blowing up at Remington and them trading blows, because they're supposed to be on the same side. Shard wonders how Sally could be the one he's looking for. I'm wondering that too. And then it cuts away to Secret HQ for what looks like another entire page that's wasted. Nothing but Silver sitting around. I feel like Sonic the Continuation has a lot more emphasis put on things happening. Action, not just talking. Silver wonders how Mecha Sally is supposed to be responsible for a future worldwide calamity, and asks for future Mammoth Mogul's help in his mind, wanting to see through the veil of time. What a deus ex machina. That turns out to be a waste of time. So he gets called by Shard and told where the Freedom Fighters are. There's a lot of pages in this issue that could have been skipped, no problem. And think about how long it took the artist to make them. Imagine how far ahead he could have been if he didn't. Silver says that the Krudo are the weeds that can control machines, though they never controlled machines in issue 1, they're just robot weeds. Based on that, he asks if it'd be possible to engineer the Krudo of all things to act as a deroboticizing agent. because it infected Titan Metal Sonic, and especially Metal Knuckles. So I guess he thinks it could reprogram a Krudo to have Sally's real personality and infect Mecha Sally with it to artificially return her mind to normal. Which he should be saying. That's certainly more interesting, and maybe more brilliant than her being de-robotized with a bioanalyzer that shouldn't still be around. But from what I remember of this comic, it never even gets to the point where that does happen to her. So Silver might as well have not brought it up, because it's not going to be used anyways. And of course Sally's still a robot, look at how slow the pacing is. Silver is told that the last location of the Krudo is in a forest pond south of Snottingham now. I thought the last of the Krudo was defeated with the old Metal Knuckles fight. I don't see why there would be any there. Anyways, he's smart enough to tell Shard to stay away from the Krudo because it could infect him too. That's smarter than when Gemma was sent after an Electromage who could control him in IDW. If only all the characters were this smart. Then it would be a great trend. Then the story cuts to Haven, where Knuckles and Julia are trying to repair it. It's unusual, since I wouldn't expect either of them to know how to do that. But all the engineer characters we know are too busy. They try initiating the computer system, and Knuckles just gets burned, and despairs. Dimitri may be a genius, so he could fix Haven, but only after he get a robot body so he wouldn't just be a head. And again, everyone who could do that for him is busy. I'm sure Chuck and Rotor are busy working on a roboticizer. These two should realize that they're going to get Haven fixed eventually, and they just have to wait for Tails to not be busy anymore. They just want something to do. Knuckles finally justifies why he's trying to fix Haven properly. Since the Brotherhood are lost in another zone, if they finish repairs here, he's hoping he could use Haven's systems to find a way there. Oh yeah, because Haven's totally well known for having an interdimensional portal, or the blueprints for it, right? No. Even then, Knuckles would obviously have better luck going to Rotor, because Rotor has a portal to the Zone of Silence and the Reverse Universe in his base. It could probably send him anywhere. And even then, they're never gonna know exactly which dimension the Brotherhood were sent to. I'm guessing the Twilight Cage is the most likely place since it's associated with Echidnas, and it'd be an ironic punishment for the Brotherhood, which of course Fancomic would want the most. But what if there's an infinite amount of Twilight Cages? If Fancomic was smart, he'd send them to a different one than the Prime one because no one would guess it. And the heroes would never know how to find them. If there were an infinite amount of universes in Sonic, there would be an infinite amount of universes where the Brotherhood were trapped in the Twilight Cage. Although I have a suspicion that there's a finite amount of universes in Archie Sonic, because Mammoth Mogul was able to make all of the screens turn black, so if he's able to destroy most of the universes but a few, then there would be a finite amount. So Julie says there's no way they can get Haven operational again after all these weeks, let alone modify the warp ring to access different zones. She does realize that Knuckles has super genius engineers for friends, right? Was she not told about Rotor being able to make the anti-Mobius portal? Would she really despair like that? I mean, if you can make a portal to Zone of Silence, I'm sure you can modify a warp ring to do the same thing. Julie says she's not giving up, and that Knuckles should keep fighting for his family's legacy. She changed her mind pretty fast. Again, Knuckles is supposed to be in Albion right now. He got the signal and decided to go there. We saw it twice in Archie Sonic, actually. This comic isn't even trying to portray how the actual issue would have been like. Just as they make up, they get interrupted by Dimitri, and Julie's pretty rude to him for just being here, even though he was being polite by hoping he wasn't interrupting anything. And she should have been told that the whole reason he's here is to make it up to them. And she was in that position where she left the Dark Legion and joined Knuckles. She knows how he feels, kind of. She has no right to judge. Dimitri relates to Knuckles that he knows how it feels to be separated from his family. So does Julie. And he wants the Dark Legionary Echidnas to be freed from Eggman. That's an ambitious, heroic goal when he should know that none of the people here can do that. Knuckles gets some hope, because if a Guardian can end up being friends with two Legion defectors, who knows what could happen. At least DEL sounds more dignified than Dark Egg Legion. Then they get a Freedom Fighter signal. The scene should have started here. We could have figured they were like that in their lives. Julie plugs it into the monitor, and Sonic tells Knuckles what he did in Albion. Sonic already said that he was going to get Knuckles to supervise the place. We didn't need to see him tell him to. It was at least surprisingly smart of Sonic to end the message right after telling him to do that to avoid giving Knuckles time to argue with him. Knuckles says that first he's gonna scavenge for supplies in the ruins of New Megapolis, and it should only take a few days to get what he needs. But Sonic told him to go to Albion pronto. I think Knuckles is just stalling to avoid facing his people. He doesn't say what exact supplies he's looking for to justify him wasting days on this. And really, they're putting Saffron alone in charge of guarding the Emerald? She doesn't even have any weapons! And realistically, she has to go to the bathroom later. Which makes me wonder how Knuckles does it. It would have made sense if there was a hidden toilet nearby. It's an island with Haven on it. As if our time wasn't wasted enough in this issue, Sonic has a brief nightmare about losing Sally to Robotnik. We already knew he was upset about what happened. We see him and Amy in the desert, and while they reference that they ate something, we don't know what exactly it is, because that'd be effort. So much for us knowing what kind of hors d'oeuvres Albion serves. Tails comes back to them and says that he stayed up all night because he didn't trust any engineer but him with his plane. As he suddenly has trust issues and ego to the point where he calls the engineers grease monkeys and had to make sure they weren't dismantling his plane. He tells Amy that T-Bup and him were locating the Death Egg with a track ray planted on it in issue 238, which tells him that Eggman's in the northern tundra. Did we need to see this scene either? The audience already knew that the heroes had a tracker on the Death Egg and that they went to the North Pole from original Archie Sonic. Though I did need the reminder that he had a tracker on it in the first place. I just pictured them as following it really closely with their plane. Sonic says they'll leave after lunch because he wants to call Elias and check up on home. They want to rescue Sally, don't they? Why aren't they in a hurry? The plane got fixed. Then we see Elias in a call with Sonic on his computer. You'd think Sonic would be calling anyone but Elias, like his own family. I mean, if he wants to check up on home, his family would be at home. I'd expect Sally to want to contact Elias above anyone else. Sonic has redundant recap to him and says he's gonna take down Eggman at the North Pole. I guess he's just saying that to mean that he's gonna fight Eggman. Or else he's pretty confident. All he wants to do is rescue Sally right now. I'm not even sure how the heroes plan on doing that without Silver though, because at no point in the story arc did they mention that they had the Robian neutralizer that Antoine used on his father. Because that would have been common sense. So that's why they needed Silver to save them in Archie Sonic, because they idiotically rushed into a fight with Mecha Sally with no means of neutralizing her right away. With basically no plan. So they had no reason to think they'd do any better against her the next fight. I just got distracted into ranting about that out of sheer boredom because nothing is happening. These two are just discussing recap with each other. Elias says that his parents are traveling to the Wolfpack's nation to provide support and aid after Sally's last attack. That is the prime example of how ridiculously bad the pacing is in this fan comic. One of the only things I think about when I remember it is that we actually see Elias' parents in the Wolfpack nation. There's no reason to. They want assured cooperation between the nations against Eggman. It was already ensured. And it was Elias' mother's decision, as Elias reminds us about how Flynn ruined the character of Sally's father out of spite. It would have been less spiteful to just not write King Max at all at that point and keep him asleep. Tails still spies on Elias while he tells Sonic that they've taken security precautions to make sure his parents' trip goes undetected. I don't know why Nicole can't sense Tails still, when she was able to sense Miles and Lightning Links in her city and magically knew that Tails was breaking into the prison to get his dad out of it. I didn't miss this aggravating plot hole with her. Elias' mother wanted to remind her husband of everything good the Acorn Kingdom stands for by helping the Wolfpack, which tries to justify it, but I don't know how they plan to help. So I don't take it seriously that they're going there. It's so weird that they'd go there without any of the heroes as bodyguards. At least in issue 134, the king planned on doing something similar, yes, but at least he planned on having what he thought was Antoine with them as a bodyguard, not to mention Chuck. Sonic asks Elias why he's back in the Nanite City, and Elias says he can't hide in the forest while Ixus rules his kingdom. And after he's naturally upset about that, immediately Sonic tells him to relax. And Elias forgets all about the secret part of the Secret Freedom Fighters, which doesn't strike me as something that would happen in Archie Sonic. Because if he was okay with this, you'd think he would have told Sonic about his team right away. But it makes sense that he would trust Sonic with it because he's the main hero of the world. I hate that T-Pop was drawn biting Amy's hand just for petting him. Tails wouldn't have programmed that. So Elias recapped to Sonic about Ixus. There's a reason this time wasting wasn't in Archie Sonic. It's at least cute to see Amy walking away with Tails riding piggyback on her because he's asleep. Nicole tells Elias that the ceremony is about to start, and Elias says he can't stay here and promised he'd meet up with his family somewhere else in the city. And Nicole says that his family will be much safer here. Why would she say that when she knows about the city's malfunctioning nanite situation? A concert stage collapsed. This idiot ball didn't happen in Archie Sonic. This is even dumber writing just for the sake of causing drama later on. The kind of writing that Flynn had. If it's only gonna happen because the heroes made a bad decision, it just makes me angry at them. Not filled with dread over the drama. We all know all the characters have to survive anyways. You could have conflict without making the characters stupid for it. Then we see even more wasted time with Cream and Big looking at the city's brand new castle. I like that Cream said that she always dreamed of being a princess with a castle of her own, giving her a girly little girl moment for once. Cream's then made stupid enough to consider writing Eggman a letter begging him to be gentle with Sally. Idealistic or not, she's not dumb enough to think that would have any effect on Eggman. Rotor at least reassures her, but it's annoying that he calls Sonic's uncle Uncle Chuck like it's the reboot. So, another entire page wasted. And now there's gonna be a third page wasted where we see a freaking chapel in a Sonic comic of all things. We clearly didn't need to see Elias talking to his wife. She at least explains that she didn't want to stay in Feral Forest after Eggman attacked it. But that's still her home. He only sent his robots at it because he was on the way to the North Pole and it happened to be on the way there. At least it's interesting that Cream reveals that Rotie's last name is Woodchuck when she asks where Tailsoul is. Nicole tells Elias that Jeffrey is inaugurating the castle in Ixus' place. Meg then has the bright idea that Elias should announce the return of his family, even though obviously the whole reason they left this city was that they didn't feel safe there when Ixus was in charge of it. They left to avoid being assassinated. How does the writer not remember that? How does Elias even consider this idea? She tells him that Elias should show everyone here that the castle doesn't belong to Ixus. Then our time is wasted even more. Although it is kind of sweet to see Dr. Quack with his wife and kids again. It humanizes him that he's shown dressed like a father instead of a doctor as usual. Jeffrey, possessed by Ixus, wastes their time with a boring speech. And then Elias grabs the idiot ball and openly storms out, saying that Ixus is no king in front of Ixus' assistant and a huge crowd of his supporters, when the whole reason his family left the city was to protect themselves from Ixus. He doesn't have any special powers. I shouldn't even have to explain this. This is one of the main things I always thought about when I remembered this Fancomic. Even when I first read it, I was shocked at how stupid Elias was being here. That is not him. There's a reason that never happened in Archie Sonic. Archie Sonic Online is more respectable by having Elias and the Secret Freedom Fighters recognize that they have to stay secret. Even if Elias didn't like hiding while his sister was attacking the city. It was smart of them to hide because they're supposed to be a secret. Why does Elias think challenging the new king is a good idea? He's obviously just gonna get put in prison like Tails' father was. The sad thing is, I bet the writer thought he was writing an awesome moment making Elias be awesome, but that'd be immature to think because he's so obviously just being a dumbass. At least Ixus does have a point in that he did save the people and city from Eggman while Elias was powerless. In that sense, he has a reason to think he earned being the ruler, while all Elias did to get his position as the prince was be born to the king and queen. And he spent most of his life not even with them. He's still the good guy compared to Ixus though. Predictably, Ixus says that the dungeon awaits him and plans on using magic against him. And then Tailsoul makes the castle collapse. It's sad that the original Archie Sonic version of the scene was actually a whole lot better. That was from issue 247, which I absolutely hated for how stupid the characters were in it, but at least that didn't have Elias be a complete dunderhead. What's the point of writing this when everyone already read issue 247 anyways? It'd make more sense to just skip past this and have the characters reference that it happened. All that time to be spent drawing something else. For some reason, after Nicole stabilizes the castle and says she needs it fixed, and doesn't just fix it immediately when she's that omnipotent, she says she needs to shut down and recover. She's usually so overpowered that whenever she claims to have a limit, it feels arbitrary. And for some reason, Ixus goes into the woods and leaves Jeffrey's body. I remember being very confused by this. Well, Archie Online revealed that being in Jeffrey's body doesn't cure Ixus' mutation illness. This comic goes the opposite direction. He feels strong again. I don't get why he thinks that he'll be able to ward off the illness indefinitely. The whole reason he has to deal with it is that the wizards he fused with to become Ixus Nagas are now able to taunt him in his head because of the Genesis wave. Somehow. It's a magical thing. How would Dr. Quack be able to stop a spell? It's so obvious that even if possessing Jeffrey was warding off the illness, he'd have to keep doing it. Forever. Archie Online makes way more sense. Of course being in Jeffrey's body wouldn't solve his problem, because the problem is in his mind. The fact that the wizards can bother him in his mind. That wouldn't go away no matter which body he was in. If they can mutate Ixus' body with their magic, they could cast a spell to do that to Jeffrey's body too. Jeffrey complains that Elias could have killed him. Ixus says it was merely to cloud Elias' judgment. That doesn't explain it. And pulls Jeffrey into a portal, planning on stopping Elias' interference permanently. I can barely remember a time that Ixus ever went into a portal. I only remember him teleporting in the arc where he faced off with and joined man with Mongol. And that was by the writer who had hundreds of continuity errors, so take that with a grain of salt. What does grading portals have to do with the 4 elements of nature? He's master of the elements, but whatever. Why should I talk about off-panels if they're not canon to the issue? The sad thing is, I bet the off-panels are way better to read than the actual story, if it's anything like post-Flynn Archie, where I preferred the off-panels. Oh, why not then? Someone I don't recognize tells Cream that tea parties could solve all the world's problems. I can't help but like seeing Cream having a tea party with Mammoth Mongol, Eggman, Metal Sonic, and Fancomic for once, because of the sheer novelty value. Eggman's at least written to lampshade the fact that he agreed to this. Mongol compliments how sweet the tea is. It makes sense that someone would enjoy a tasty drink. So they have some reason for being here. Fancomic adds to his character a little because he says he prefers coffee. Cream sweetly asks, "Would you like some sugar, Mr. Metal?" And I'm wondering if Metal Sonic can even drink it. That'd be a pretty advanced robot if he could. One of those biomass-eating robots. There's an off-panel where Dimitri tells Knuckles he'll do anything to make things up to him and prove his sincerity. And he says that's not what he had in mind when we cut to Knuckles and Julie lying on beach chairs, with Julie trying to suntan with shades on, and Knuckles, I guess, sipping lemonade with a hat on. It's very hard to tell what's going on with Dimitri. I think we're supposed to see ice cubes in his dome. It's not a very big panel, and I'm only able to zoom in on the pages so much. There's nothing to say about the other off-panels. I'm just really confused at seeing them. This issue by Glitcher had practically nothing happen in it, which made it boring to read through all of that dialogue. Most of it was just characters redundantly recapping to each other in front of us for some reason. And the only actually memorable and important parts of the issue were the idiot bulls that didn't happen in Archie Sonic for good reason. If you're gonna have stuff that didn't happen in Archie Sonic for a reason, at least go all out and be gutsy with it. Like, Sonic the Continuation had, like, Sonic X characters show up in it. The King and Queen wouldn't go back to New Metropolis. The whole reason they left the city was to prevent Ixus from killing them. Why on earth would he be stupid enough to challenge Ixus when Ixus is a wizard who has the support of everyone in the city? If I was gonna write that, I would have Elias discover that, like, he has magical powers too. I mean, why not go all out when you're being that ridiculous? Most of the story is just characters talking. The pacing in this comic is god-awful. It's a shame that the comic is so problematic that I'm unhappy about its issues, because I know the art is great, and it's great seeing Archie Sonic characters in it. It looks like it should be fantastic. It looks like an issue of the actual comic. In theory, I always loved the idea of the comic existing and what it was trying to do. But what's so great about it trying to rewrite Archie Sonic if it does an inferior job? When I didn't even think that was possible. The Endangered Species rewrite was a great idea for its time, but Archie Sonic Online completely one-upped it. And now this. Instead of having the drama of Archie Sonic Online, where it makes sense going off the previous continuity, and Ixus naturally lost it from his sheer desperation to recover from his mutating, and it caused him to have a scary new form and threaten the whole city, this comic isn't planned to kill Elias in his normal form because Elias lost all his IQ points just to come here for the plot. I don't know why possessing and unpossessing Jeffrey staves off the wizard illness that the Genesis wave gave Ixus, when obviously if they were magical enough to mutate his body trying to take control of it for themselves, then they will be able to do that to him in Jeffrey's body too. They're not going off science.